friends, we are going to start chapter 2 here, and we're learning about conditionals and biconditionals, and we think very much in geometry and conditional statements. So we're going to define them today. We're going to decide when they are true and false, and then we're also going to talk about different ways of writing them. So first of all, we're going to talk about what a conditional statement is. A conditional statement is an if-then statement. Like, for instance, if today is Friday, then tomorrow is Saturday. If then. If my daughter Cora cleans her room, then she can play with her friends. We think an if-then form. Your parents will say this. If you get an A on the test, then you can go to your friend's house, or, those type of reasoning. We do it every day. Now, we break our if-then statements, our conditional statements, into different parts. We have the hypothesis, which is the if phrase, okay? It's everything after the if. The if just is your signal. So for right here, that would be your hypothesis. And then we have, which would be today is Friday. Notice no if is with that. And then we have our conclusion, which is the then phrase. It's what we end up with. And it's after the then, and that's your conclusion. Tomorrow is Saturday. Now, we use symbolic symbols to represent these, so we can do a quick way of showing you those. And we let P represent the hypothesis. We let the letter Q represent the conclusion, and we use this little arrow going to the right. So it reads like this. If P, then Q. So it's still a conditional statement even when we read it, but it's just a quick symbolic form of being able to represent that phase. Now, what's cool about a conditional statement, it is a true or a false statement. It doesn't have to be true in order for it to still be written. True or false conditional statements. So the first one is our hypothesis one, and they can be true or false. So we put a TT, false, false. Then we have combinations with those, so we put down for our conclusions true, false, true, false. And then here on the right column, our symbol is an arrow going to the right, which gives us a conditional statement. So when I read this, I'm going to go, if I have a true statement, then a true statement, it's going to be true. Because true, then true, logically we can assume we have a true statement. Then the next one, we have if a true statement, then false. If true, then false, you can logically conclude it has a false validity. And actually, this is the very important one. Now, the next one is if I have a false hypothesis but a true conclusion, our instincts would say, well, it has to be false because the hypothesis is false. No, it still has a true validity. And then our last one, that we have a possible combination in a conditional statement, is if I have a false statement and then a false statement. Well, if you have false, then false, and this is where it's completely against what we feel, it's still a true statement. The only time a conditional statement is false is when the hypothesis is true and the conclusion is false. It's the only time. Now, please understand, there's only one example I've ever really used that kind of makes sense with students. It's dating relationships. We're going to use just two generic students, John and Sue. Now, what if we said the following statement? If John mows the lawn and earns $30, then he will take Sue to the movies. All right, well, let's go through all the possible combinations now. John mows the lawn, earns $30. He takes Sue to the movies. He made a true statement. It was still true. What happens if he didn't mow the lawn and earn the $30, but he still took her to the movies? So the conclusion was still true. Well, he didn't lie to her. He still held his promise. It was still true. Look at the last example here. He didn't mow the lawn and earn the $30, and he didn't take her to the movies. Well, he still didn't lie to her. Those scenarios didn't happen, so it's still a true statement. So try to kind of think about it as if you're telling a person a true fact or not, and are you keeping your word, is an easy way of memorizing this. So anytime that you have a true hypothesis and a false conclusion, that's when it's a false statement. You prove it wrong by showing a counterexample. Now, we are going to go over to the other side of the worksheet here, and then we're going to talk about other ways of writing conditional statements.